the Los Angeles Dodgers are still good at ball. Do the Cincinnati Reds have a chance in this series? No. Jim Bowden was so firm about it when we asked him.
That record's going to be good for next year.
He was like, I'm good. They have no chance.
Hey, but they did score a run. It's the first run they've scored in the postseason since 2013.
5 runs.
They scored a run.
Yeah. Do the Dodgers have a bullpen problem?
No, we've been talking about this forever. Where was Rōki?
Saving him?
I guess, for today?
Yeah. For the clincher?
They're going to do Yamamoto, Rōki?
This was supposed to
be garbage time.
This
is a great matchup for Rōki because Rōki can come in and strike all them dudes out because they swing at everything.
Right. But you need to throw strikes, Kratz. And they had an historically crazy inning, right? 59 pitches in the 8th inning, most in a single playoff inning since at least 1988.
It's a lot of pitches. I was confused why they brought Vesia in, but as the inning unfolded, maybe this is where he sees Vesia, Enriquez, like guys that he's like, you know what, I'm probably not going to go to you in big games, which I was confused by Vesia. I really was, because I know he had some blips at the end of the season, but I thought he would be a guy you'd go to in the normal 1 or 2 run game in the 7th, like bang, that's our guy. But hey, I was wrong.
And for Dodger fans, you watched a team that put up 10 runs in a game that included Hunter Green starting. And I actually didn't think his stuff was bad. He was a little overamped in the beginning.
I mean, listen, it was kind of like what happened to Dylan Cease last year. Once Ohtani hit that home run, it kind of was like, oh, wow, what a wake-up call.
Shell-shocked.
Yeah, and then after that, I mean, it was he didn't – his stuff was good, but his location wasn't very good. And if you make mistakes as this Dodger team, man, especially in the postseason when they're awake and they're like, we have to win, and they've turned it on, it's a tough lineup to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have Muncy back. If Teoscar hits, I mean, you can't throw Shohei right there. I mean, that's a nothing ball down and in. Teoscar, a little nothing ball. I mean, Tommy Edman's playoff Tommy Edman.
Snell pitched well.
Snell pitched great.
Yeah.
7 innings, right? You give up 2, but
that's late. What you want.
I mean, it's perfect. They were up 10-2 when Snell came out. Hand it off. You're like, an 8-run lead. It's close. And then all of a sudden it gets a little bit dicey. Not really, but it got a little dicey.
If you're playing a different playoff team, that could get really dicey. You're suddenly down 5, bases loaded, 1 out. I mean, the Tyler Stevenson at bat, for example, ended up costing the Reds a lot in my mind because he swung at maybe 3 or 4 pitches that were outside of the zone, including strike 3. And I know it's easier said than done. We're just talking here. But just given what was going on in that inning, Kratz, there were some ball 4s there that could have then walked in another run and really made things interesting. They were not throwing enough strikes to get guys out.
It's crazy to me. It was like, I forget who said it on the broadcast. It was almost like it was contagious. Came in and it was like, okay, this guy's consistently throwing strikes. Ball 2, ball 3. And I thought it was close. When you're at 10-5 and the bases are loaded and they're not throwing you strikes, that's the biggest thing. Like, watch the whole game, not just watch like, oh, he struck out there, so it really wasn't that big of a deal. Like, you have to pump the middle of the strike zone when you have a 6-run lead, 5-run lead. You got to pump the middle of the strike zone because even a home run doesn't tie the ball game. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes forward because Blake Snell has already done what we said we thought we would see from Doc Roberts. And it was a no-brainer. He was pitching well. But Blake Snell broke his own personal record, which I've been crying for since he was with the Rays. I don't think he's a guy you take out 3rd time through the order. He's consistently in his career, especially the last 3 years, been better the 3rd time through the order. So good for Doc, not just pulling the hook and being like, hey, we'll save you. We're going to the next round. We got to get our bullpen some work. Stuck with them. Longest outing ever in the playoffs.
That's cool. Yeah, he's got 3 great secondary pitches. And as long as he's throwing strikes,
here's the thing about Matt McClain had a nice game, so good for him after he's kind of been through a crappy season. So good for him, a couple hits and all that. But the Dodgers just didn't throw strikes last night. That was the biggest problem. They just weren't throwing strikes. They were walking these guys, and the Reds swing, right? So listen, Stevenson, it happens. I've struck out with the bases loaded. And then they asked me after the game, and I'm like, yeah, well, it happens. Have you ever hit with the bases loaded? Yeah. I strike out sometimes. Everyone does. Even, Luis Arraez, I guarantee you struck out with the bases loaded. So Guy strikes out, he swings at a bat. Baseball's hard, man. Especially it gets ramped up, and everyone's like, "Oh, how do you swing at that?" Because the guy's trying to get you to swing at that.
Yeah.
He's not just going to throw it down the middle and say, hit it.
He's tunneling and then trying to make you think that it's going to be in the zone, and then it's not. I get that.
Baseball's hard. Let's always remember. I think that's the biggest thing people don't understand. Baseball's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And you get into these heightened moments, and it gets even harder.
I just want to start with Shohei Ohtani and how much he set the tone for an offense that has its ups and downs from the 2025 season. They weren't perfect, right?
Yeah, I mean, up until the last couple of weeks of the regular season here, the offense was a real question for the Dodgers. They had guys that were out injured. They weren't executing in situational spots, and they weren't getting the kind of performances from some of their stars, Shohei and Ohtani included, that they needed to. And over the last couple of weeks, all of those things got better. Ohtani specifically came into the postseason in a really good spot. And there's just something about when he has those kinds of moments, it's a lift for the team. It puts a jolt in the stadium. It was similar to game one of the postseason last year for the Dodgers when they were down 3-0 early and he hit a 3-run homer in the second. And yeah, I mean, for a lineup that, in some ways was almost not happy that they didn't have a bye this year, but was happy to not have 5 days off after the way they finished the year, to have him step in there and start the game that way. I think, yes, kind of set the tone for what you saw the rest of the night.
Jack, was this just a matter of the Dodgers offense having to flip a switch? Because they were on cruise control the whole year. We're going to make the playoffs. We're going to win the division. We got to play now. And all of a sudden, boom, 10 spot against Hunter Green. I mean, he had good stuff, missed some location, but still, this looked like the Dodgers offense just flipped the switch into full, we're going to be the Dodgers mode.
Yeah, this flip the switch question has been one that's kind of been hovering around the team for the last couple months. I think, frankly, and guys have said it, it's tough to bring, especially when you're coming off a World Series and you start the year in Japan early like they did, and you have all these expectations and you know that you're a really good team. It's tough to bring that highest level of intensity on a daily basis over the course of the year. And I think something that happened as the team was struggling during the second half, as their division lead was getting a lot tighter, was that they got a little bit more intentional about talking to each other, having the hitting coaches tell them, hey, when we get guys in scoring position, we got to take advantage. When we're facing good starters, we have to stick to our game plan and we have to be disciplined. A lot of guys were working through swing problems this year. And there were times where, it almost looked like swing camp, as one of their hitting coaches put it, where guys were more focused on their mechanics than just competing. And I think over the last couple weeks of the season, they've done a much better job of getting back to the identity of offense that has really defined this team for so long, which is stressing opposing pitchers. You look at the Teoscar Hernandez home run, that's set up by a couple really good at-bats from Freddie Freeman and Max Muncy leading up to it to be able to draw some walks, put him under pressure, and then Teoscar Hernandez gets the chance to do damage. So I think, yes, a flip has been switched. I think it's something they were able to do late in the regular season. They were hoping it would carry into the playoffs, and last night was a pretty good first sign.
You can just say all their offense is based around Max Muncy, and nobody gives him enough credit because his numbers and his trophy case aren't as big. But if this team is going to continue this offensive run, where are the areas that teams are going to attack? Because to me, all the way up through Teoscar, and obviously Tommy Edman just does what he does in the playoffs, you just have a relentless lineup that is going to wear pitching down. Where is the area that a team can attack? Say, okay, we can do this if I do this to the Dodgers lineup. Yeah,
this is still a lineup that can sometimes be prone to getting over aggressive, swinging out of the zone. I think, when you look at Shohei Ohtani last October, that was kind of the story of it for him, is for all the big moments he did have, he also got a little swing happy at times and started chasing pitches he shouldn't, starting to feel like he needed to do too much. It's something where you have to make like every guy kind of feel like they need to pick up more of the slack, right, than they probably need to. But that's difficult to do when you have so many guys in the lineup clicking like you've seen lately. If Max Muncy is being productive and getting on base, and Tommy Edman's being productive and having big hits, and Teoscar Hernandez is looking like the guy who helped carry this team to a World Series last October, it allows everybody else to be a lot more disciplined in their individual approaches. It's something these guys have talked about, at the end of the season. So that's the challenge, because they are so talented. I mean, this was the really confounding part of when they struggled and were like the fourth lowest scoring offense from July to the end of August, which is there was so much talent in the room, but guys just were not sticking to their approach. So the way they've looked at it, it's always an internal thing. Like Max Muncy always says, we're playing against ourselves first and foremost. And if we can go out there and execute what we need to do, stick to our plan, have good at bats, and then take advantage of the mistakes that we do generate from opposing pitchers, we feel like, we can score as much as we need to. And that's going to make it an interesting test, for opposing pitching staff to try to figure out how to put them under a little bit more stress as the playoffs go on.
Okay, enough about the offense. We know the Dodgers can hit. Let's get to the real meat of this Dodgers problem. What the heck are they going to do in the bullpen? It been a problem down the stretch. It was a problem last night. I know they still won 10-5, but they were on cruise control, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it's all hands on deck. Is Tanner Scott going to close? Is Rōki going to close? Where do they? They use Vesia in an 8-run game. Where's Emmet Sheehan? What are they going to do here for the Dodgers? If you're Dave Roberts, are you like, man, we got this great team, but there's all these problems at the back end?
Yeah, the but in that sentence kind of became the story last night, which is they have all the pieces, but how do you make sure the bullpen doesn't blow it? What was really disconcerting about last night is Alex Vesia is one of their highest trusted relievers, especially of like the traditional relief group. He's been the one guy who was mostly healthy all year, who was mostly good all year, and who was more than anybody else probably like the fireman guy that they wanted to be able to turn to when situations got hot and there was traffic on base. And to see him come in an 8-run game, I mean, when he came in, the joke in the press box last night is, man, even with an 8-run lead, Dave Roberts isn't taking chances by putting in one of his most trusted guys. And to see him come in, give up a hit, and then walk a batter, like the walk in a batter with that big of a lead, it hits on this problem the Dodgers have had that Dave Roberts has talked about, which is sometimes it just looks like guys are not being aggressive enough, are almost pitching scared, are letting the mental toll and the frustrations and the lack of confidence from the whole season kind of weigh on them pitch by pitch by pitch. And that set the tone for the rest of the inning. Seeing Edgardo Enriquez come in and struggle with his command, that's something he's prone to. Jack Dreyer, like I heard you guys mention it earlier, yet Tyler Stevenson helped him out by swinging at a couple pitches outside of the strike zone that one more walk, I think, could have really made that situation uncomfortable for the Dodgers. So, look, moving forward, they're going to have to start doing different things. And I think you would have seen a different game plan last night if it was less than an 8-run lead. But Rōki Sasaki is going to pitch big innings. Emmet Sheehan, who was warming at the end of that 8th inning, is somebody that they're kind of hoping can be one of their best relievers now that he's been moved to the bullpen. For this series, Tyler Glasnow is going to be available down there. Blake Treinen is someone they're hoping can figure it out a little bit. They're going to probably keep him in some softer landing spots like you saw last night with a 5-run lead to try to let him build some confidence. Tanner Scott is in the same boat. But if those kind of performances continue, I think then you have to start thinking about getting really outside the box, using your starters on their bullpen days in relief, a lot more aggressively. Clayton Kershaw is kind of being saved right now to see if he needs to start a division series game early, depending on how this series goes. But that's at least somebody that if you put out there in relief, he's going to be not rattled by the moment and get the ball over the plate. So this was the big question coming into the playoffs. Could they trust their traditional relievers? There were some encouraging signs at the end of the season, but last night was a real warning sign that they're going to have to get creative with that unit because the guys that make up the traditional pen are just not in a good place right now.
Okay, AJ, our slab pack ripping continues. Now, you just ripped a card that I think you're actually going to keep.
I am. I'm going to keep it. It's a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. The old, isn't this the famous upper deck one? I believe it is. And heck yeah, I'm going to keep it because I'm going to get Griffey to sign it. I'm going to get him to send it to me, which you can do, and I'm going to get Griffey to sign it, and it's only going to make it worth more. So I am all in on this card. I am keeping it, and it is one of the coolest cards with the highest turtleneck you've ever seen and the gold chain around his neck.
Graded 9, 1989 upper deck. You get the offer for $179. It's valued at around $199. And you're like, nah, I'm keeping it. But if you wanted to sell it back instantly, you can. It's the beauty of Arena Club. AJ is going to send in and get the physical card sent to him. And you can do the same. 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase can happen for you if you go to arenaclub.com/foul and use the code FOUL.
We'll go right to tonight then. Let's say Yamamoto has a nice start, right? He gives them 6 innings, and the score is 2-2. Does he go right to Sheehan, right to Rōki, and leave Tanner Scott and Treinen and these other guys out of it, and go with these new toys basically that he has in the bullpen, Dave Roberts, or does he still try to go Treinen and close it with Scott if they take the lead late on a Reds bullpen that's been really good?
I think Rōki and Sheehan right now are going to be the guys that he would turn to, especially in a closer game. To me, an interesting question is if there's a situation where there's a run of lefties coming up, who do you trust in that spot? The Dodgers kind of look at Emmet Sheehan as a neutral guy that I think they would trust to face some left-handed hitters. Obviously, you brought Tanner Scott here for a reason. He's going to have to contribute at some point. Alex Vesia, I think it'll be interesting to see how much that changed their trust level in him, at least in the short term. But yeah, I think right now you're going to see Sheehan, Rōki, and then maybe Tyler Glasnow, although with them being up in the series, I'd imagine they'd probably try to stay away from him just in case things go to tomorrow. But that's the place that they're at. And the blessing for this team is that they have so much starting pitching depth that they can put 3 or 4 starters in the bullpen and have them step into big roles and trust that they're going to pitch well. But it's still putting them in situations that we haven't seen very much. Emmet Sheehan has like a couple relief appearances this year in bulk innings. Rōki Sasaki, for as good as those 2 outings at the end of the regular season looked, still had never pitched in relief in his life up until the last month. So it is an uncomfortable place. The Dodgers are hoping that they still have like just the overall talent, but it's trying to figure out who can you trust in which spots, who's going to go out there and throw competitive pitches. And when you don't know those answers, it makes planning out how the end of a game looks or figuring out who to turn to in a certain situation if you're Dave Roberts, just not a very fun task.
Yoshinobu Yamamoto is starting his 31st game. That is 5 more starts than he's ever had in his entire life in one season. Is there a fear they never got some days off? I know he threw on 6 days rotation, but is there a fear that he's going to tire down the end here? I get it. He hasn't in his last starts, but this is uncharted territory by a lot of starts.
There's not a fear. The Dodgers' answer to this question has been, yes, it's more starts, but it's not a huge difference in the overall innings. When he was in Japan, he would throw a lot more pitches in each of his outings than he does over here. And they've also just seen him week after week go through his training program every week, throw his javelins in the outfield, and continue to look like he's in a good spot physically every time he takes the mound. Tonight, this is the kind of game I'd expect that you see some 97s, 98s on the board with him with his fastball, which is something he does typically when in bigger moments that he wants to try to rise up to. So it's been a really impressive year from him because, the durability, the injuries, the question of could he handle, pitching on a regular schedule or semi-regular schedule coming from Japan over to the big leagues. Like that was the whole question about him last season. And for him to embrace that, get better as the season's gone on, look really comfortable and confident in a way that we didn't really see last year, really like right up until the end of the postseason when he seemed to finally kind of trust himself in that kind of environment to go and attack big league hitters and get outs in the way that we've seen this year. So it's been a really impressive overall year. And the fact that he's been as durable as he has been speaks to just the way that he takes care of his body, that he goes about his preparation between starts, and has allowed him to take on a career high workload this year without many concerns about, is he running out of gas or anything like that.
Jack, you mentioned earlier they might be glad they're playing in the wild card series. Can I add to that and ask you their feelings on this? I mean, not only do they get to play the wild card series, I know their pitching won't be perfectly lined up for when they get to if they win and get to play Philly, but not only do they get these extra games to try to figure something out, but, and I mean this is with all due respect, but they got to play the Reds, a team that most people think on paper is overmatched by them. So is that also a blessing for them? Yes, they have to play 2 more or possibly 3 more games, and yes, the Reds could still win this series. But if you're the outsider and you're a Dodger fan, you're like, okay, we get extra bats for Shohei. We don't get the time off. We get to look at guys from our bullpen, whether it's Rōki, Sheehan, Glasnow, whoever we need to put in places. And we're playing a team that, quite honestly, we should beat in 2 games.
Yeah, I think the latter part about the pitching and the bullpen specifically is the thing I was thinking about coming into this series. The lineup not having to take 5 days off. Again, I think that's a net plus, but it's not something that you saw the Dodgers last year. They were able to kind of overcome that pretty quickly. To me, the benefit of having things work out this way is that you potentially gave yourself an opportunity exactly like last night, where you could build a big lead, where you could throw your relievers in what should have been lower leverage spots and see if they can build some momentum, so that by the time you do get to the DS, if you advance and you're facing a much better Phillies lineup, at least you've had a couple games where the bullpen had success. And that's what made last night really frustrating, I think. Now, at least as the eighth inning, as it pertains to the eighth inning, you look at the ninth, Blake Treinen came out and looked okay. Yeah, he gave up the one hit on the ball that Justin Dean couldn't catch in center, but that's a confidence building moment. And if you go into tonight's game and Rōki Sasaki can have a good outing if he's called upon, and Emmet Sheehan can be good if he's called upon, then that's going to give those guys confidence as you move forward. So that is where I think in this specific circumstance and playing a team like the Reds as opposed to the Mets, who would have obviously provided a much bigger challenge with what they bring offensively, this should be an opportunity for the Dodgers to, especially with the one area of their team that needs some confidence, build it. But you still have to execute. And as you saw in the eighth inning last night, if you're not throwing strikes, if you're not being aggressive, if you're not even giving yourself a chance to get outs as efficiently as you need to, then this Reds lineup is still pretty good enough to make things interesting and string a rally together. So that's what's going to be key to me the next couple nights. Can the Dodgers not only win this series, but build some momentum in the bullpen along the way and learn a little bit about who they trust the most in leverage spots as they move forward in October?
Very few people are 100% healthy going into the playoffs, but the Dodgers have two kind of limited players on their bench, Will Smith and Tommy Edman. Tommy Edman, will he get back to center field, or is the ankle not going to allow him to do that in this entire postseason? And Will Smith, being the third catcher, pinch hitter off the bench, is that hand on the path to healing to be able to get behind the dish as early as the NLDS against the Phillies?
Yeah, with Tommy Edman, I think in the short term, they're going to probably try to keep him on the infield. We saw this earlier this season with this ankle injury where when he's in the outfield and he's having to make these kind of bigger turns and then go into a sprint, like those are the things that bother the ankle a little bit more than when he just has to shuffle laterally at second base. So that could change, depending on how the ankle feels moving forward. But I think for right now, they would prefer to just keep him at second base. Will Smith, Andrew Friedman said yesterday the fracture in his hand is healed, which is a really big development because that means that's what's kind of allowed him to start ramping up his activity and intensity and taking swings and live at bats on the workout day and throwing the ball again and things like that. So Dave Roberts has left the door open for him potentially starting this week. I think that would probably only happen, especially now, if they lose tonight and are facing elimination tomorrow. But the hope is that, yes, maybe as soon as the DS, the throwing strength will be back to where he needs it to be. The swings, he'll have taken enough of them to feel confident that, okay, if I go and take 5 at-bats one night, I'm not going to wake up with my hands swollen and in pain and unable to play the next. Those are kind of the last boxes that he needs to check. But, yeah, for where this situation was a week ago, I think the fact that Will Smith is on the roster, available to pinch it now, and could potentially be back to starting games in the next week or so is a really positive development.